Hello and welcome to another breakout session. This is breakout session number 8. We're calling this the care and feeding of your acoustic guitar. As usual, before I get started, I want to say hi to all the Guitar League members around the country that might be watching today. And if you haven't already, I'm asking you, will you please hit the little subscribe button, then find the little bell. And if you hit that, we'll send you a notification when we put one of these breakout sessions up. And if you like these sessions, if you hit the like button, that would help too. Today we're going to do two quick little things. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to do care and maintenance of an acoustic guitar. We're going to do maybe change the strings, oil the fretboard a little bit, do some just normal maintenance on this. Second thing we're going to do is we're going to take a less expensive guitar and do a couple of minor upgrades that can make a major difference in the sound of it. So we'll get back to that. In breakout session number 5, if you remember, we had Bart Marshall here from the Phoenix Guitar League. And he gave us some ideas on how to buy your first guitar or what you should look for, things like that. Well, now that you have a new guitar, you need to be able to maintain it. So that's what we're going to show you today. In the Phoenix chapter of Guitar League, we were lucky enough, one of our first presenters that we had was a local luthier who came in and set up a table and showed us how to set up an acoustic guitar from scratch. I thought I knew a little bit about that, but I actually learned a whole lot that day. And so I'd like to pass some of that information on to you. So that's what we're going to do. You know, a guitar is a lot like a car in the respect that it does need periodic maintenance. Like in a car, there's maintenance that you can do. You know, you can probably put gas in it and check the oil and do things like that. But then there's things where you need to actually take it in to a professional technician to have it checked out. Well, the guitar is very similar to that, okay? Where there's maintenance that you can do and you should do. And then there's things that you probably should take it in to a professional technician to look at. And we're going to talk about those things today. So today what we're going to do is we are going to do a normal maintenance on this guitar. This is a Larrabee guitar. This is a quality guitar. It could be compared to some Taylors and some Martins. It's made out of real wood. This is a spruce top. I believe this is an Indian rosewood back and sides. So it's real wood. So a quality guitar sometimes needs to be tweaked, you know, because it is real wood. For instance, if you were to keep this guitar at the same temperature and humidity that it was made at, it would be perfect. This guitar was made at 72 degree temperature and 42 degrees humidity. And you can find that out, I believe, on most major brand guitars, what that is. So in a perfect world, that's what you'd want to do, is to keep this guitar at that temperature and humidity. But it doesn't work that way. For instance, here in Phoenix, it's 111 degrees out there right now. The day that Bart was here, it was 116 degrees. So it's kind of cooling down a little bit here, but it's still pretty toasty. So if you take your guitar out, you're going to a gig or you're going to a jam or something, and you take it out into that temperature, then you bring it inside to 75 degrees or whatever, there's a major change, and this guitar is going to go through some tweaking. So like, you know, in Phoenix, obviously, we have a humidity issue, lack of it. On the East Coast, you might not have that in Asheville or Nashville, but like for instance in Boston, you have a different issue. You could be on your way to a gig in January and be stuck on the Mass Turnpike for a while, and then you get to your gig and you got to thaw your guitar out. But it's the same concept. It's going to be changing and it's going to be tweaking. So today we're going to do a maintenance on this guitar. And while we're at it on this guitar, I don't know if this. Let's see if we got this. This is on. This guitar has a little issue. I don't know if you can hear that through this camera mic. That is a fret buzz. It's supposed to be nice and clean like all these other ones, but that is annoying. And that happens, as I said, from temperature changes and humidity changes. It tweaks a little bit and a fret can pop up. So that needs to be taken care of. And I believe that we are capable of taking care of that. So we're going to do that in just a minute. So let me take a break here. Let me set up a table, get out the tools, and show you what you need and how to do it. And we'll be right back. Okay, we're back. Before we take this apart, I wanted to give you a little list of tools that you're probably going to need when you do this kind of maintenance. I have a little black bag that I keep all my Luthier type tools in, maybe extra set of strings or whatever. And so when I go out on a jam, or if I ever had a gig, I'm ready for it, okay? Because anything can happen. Like I said, you can break a string, you know, I have a lot of electric guitars, so something can go crazy with those. So for my electric guitars, I have a whole package of screws, you know, that would fit on the pick guard, on the neck, little springs that go underneath your bridge, all kinds of screws for anything that might happen. I got extra strap buttons and things that I take with me. Then you probably need a little string winding tool. It makes it easy. You don't have to have one. You can do it by hand, but it makes it easy. Little screwdrivers, little Phillips head screwdrivers for tightening the tuning keys and stuff, the tuners. A little set of wire cutters to cut the strings when you're done, or to cut them off. I have a little mirror that you can look inside the sound hole in case there's some kind of an issue in there. You might have electronics and you might have a wire that comes disconnected, or your piezo's giving you problems. A pencil, a lead pencil, which is very critical, and we'll talk about that later. And in this scenario, because as we mentioned, we have a little fret buzz on this guitar. So we're going to need a fret crowning tool. You could spend $127 on a diamond bladed one from StewMac, and if you're a luthier, that's probably what you want. Or you can spend maybe $15 and get a little kit that has a little file. It's a crown file on both sides for frets. It comes with a couple of these little protectors that you put over the fret when you're filing, a couple of little stones for grinding, and one of the most important things this one comes with is this little fret block tool, because we're going to need this right now. We're going to show you about this right now. This is a little rocker tool that you put over the frets. You put, and it's different sizes because frets obviously are closer together, higher up the neck. But up here where this buzz is, you need the wider part. And you put it over the frets, like 3 at a time, and you rock it back and forth. And you see right here, it's not rocking. But you see right here, or I don't know if you can see it or hear it, but it is rocking right there. And it's not rocking right there. So what that tells me is this little fret, the 3rd fret, is the culprit here. So when you're pushing down on the 2nd fret, it's hitting the 3rd fret and causing that buzz. So that's what's wrong with this guitar. So hopefully we're going to be able to crown that down when we take the strings off. We're going to protect the fretboard. We've got a couple of things. We've got these little guys to help protect it, and then some blue painter's tape is your best tool with a guitar. So you can put the painter's tape on the fretboard so that you're not marking it up when you're filing. So we're going to get back to that in just a minute here. I'm going to take it apart and get the strings off it and see if we can't fix this fret buzz before we go any further. Also, you're going to want some lemon oil. If you've got a real wood fretboard and not some kind of composite, you need to oil it. It's very critical. We'll talk about that. And also, you want to have nice, clean microfiber towels to clean everything off with, and some kind of a little tuner when you're done so that you can tune it all up. So we're going to stop here. I'm going to take the string. Okay, so I've taped these up a little bit with some masking tape to protect the fretboard. Now I have my little tool that is a crowning tool. It's a little file inside a crown. Frets need to be crowned. You can't file them flat. It doesn't work that way. They have to have a nice crown. So you need a little tool like that. And it seems to be this side of this fret. So you're going to just file it a little bit. You know, it's kind of a trial and error thing. But we're going to do that. We're going to file it down and see if we can get rid of this buzz. So I'll work on this for a while you have a cup of tea or something. Okay, this is not rocking right now. I filed it down. Whether or not it's totally gone, we won't know till we put the strings on it, but we feel pretty comfortable that that has solved that problem. We'll find out later. Okay, so now I'm done messing around with this little fret for now. You could do that on every fret, just lightly crown them a little bit and then run steel wool to shine them up a little bit, but these frets are really in good shape. So now that I'm done with this, I take a paper towel because it is like a little fine sandpaper. And it cleans better. So I go over the fretboard with a paper towel to get the dirt and grime and stuff off of it the best I can. Of course, this is an ebony fretboard, so it's black. So it's hard to tell what's going on with that. Okay? But I use a paper towel on that. I don't use it on too many other things. So obviously I've removed the strings from this. I unwound them. I didn't cut them. I just unwound them, then wrapped them up and threw them away. I took the bridge pins out, and I don't know about you, but to me it's like, you know, a sock missing in a dryer. There's always something missing. So I like to get a little baggie and put whatever parts I take off a guitar in different baggies depending on what they are, if they're pickups or whatever I'm taking apart. But anyway, so I got in that habit, and I think it's a good habit because then you can find those. I've already gone by and checked the tightness of the tuners. Now, this particular one takes a little 10mm wrench on the top. You don't want them to be too tight, but you'll find them that they're loose. So I did that. Then I went around with a really small Phillips screwdriver, and the ends of these tuners have little screws in them that tighten those on. So I check those. Again, you don't want to break off anything, but they all need to be tight. And then the same on the back. If you flip it over, you have the actual screws that hold the tuners on. You'll find that those are loose sometime, and the whole tuner's rocking. And obviously, it's a little hard to keep it in tune that way. The other thing, you want to keep track of your bridge. If you've never done this before, of your saddle of your bridge, because there's, you know, you could put it in backwards. So you want to make sure that you saw how it came out originally. Keep track of that when you take the strings off. Look at the saddle to see which way it was facing. and put it back the same way. Okay, so now the next step that we're going to do, it's also nice to have a can of air. I blow out the inside of the guitar. They get dusty in there. And if you have electronics in there, I like to blow that out because it helps the pots from being scratchy if you can get the dust out of them. So I do that with a little compressed air. Then the next thing I'm going to do before I start putting this back together again, putting new strings on it, is I'm going to oil the fretboard. I used to use a flaxseed oil because I was a little concerned that lemon oil would have acid and it might be a problem for the frets, but the flaxseed oil, although it's great, it leaves a big residue on the wood. And it doesn't seem to want to come off. So I'm not crazy about that. I use it for other purposes, but now I'm back to the lemon oil and it seems to be working good. So if you have time, what I do is I put it on the fretboard and then I just let it soak. If you're in no big hurry, it's nice if you could let it soak actually overnight to really get in there and do some good. Another little trick, if you have a truss rod cover on your type of guitar where you access the truss rod from this end of the guitar, what I do with those is I take that truss rod cover off, I'll stand the guitar up in a guitar stand, and I'll actually pour oil, lemon oil, down there, and I'll let that sit overnight. And it gets inside and lubricates the truss rod because they will get bound up in there. And although I don't want you adjusting at this point, you know, as a beginner, you're not going to be adjusting the truss rod. It doesn't hurt to, hopefully you'll have the right tool for your truss rod. And you can just turn it like maybe 1/8 of a turn and then back and 1/8 of a turn the other way, just to get that oil through there and to stop it from seizing. Because if that seizes up or bends or something, that is a major problem. I'll put a little picture up there and show you what that can do. So you want to prevent that from happening. So I oil the fretboard and also the bridge if it's solid wood. You want to oil that too. They get dried out. Sometimes when you go to take the pins out, the string pins in Arizona, they don't want to come out because they're so dried in there. So you want to soak this up with oil pretty good. And we're going to do this, and then we're going to let this just soak in, and we're going to spread it around nice and neat and not make a mess. And have some more teal. Okay, we finished oiling the fretboard and we're ready to do some next steps. I'm a little more liberal with my lemon oil because here in Arizona, these things do really get dried out. I've seen like rosewood fretboards that are just dried and cracked, and that oil will bring them back, make them swell back together. So I use a lot of it. In some other parts of the country, you might not want to do that because if you use too much oil, then you can loosen your frets. It can get underneath them and loosen the frets. So you have to play that by ear. But out here, you need quite a bit of it. Okay, so we mentioned this was a quality guitar. So usually on a quality guitar, you're going to find a high density bone, nut, or some other high density material for the nut and also for the saddle. On the less expensive model guitars, they may be made out of plastic. And plastic does not conduct the sound well. It has like no sound. If you drop a plastic saddle on the ground, you won't even hear a noise. If you drop a bone one on the ground, you'll hear a sharp ping because it's going to transfer the string vibrations through the guitar. That's what you're trying to do. So it would probably be a good time to change those two things if you had a less expensive guitar, but that's a little more advanced. We're going to talk about that in a bit. Okay, but this already has bone on it. This guitar, notice, is going to have a birthday this month. On September 23rd, it's going to be 23 years old. So things do wear out in that length of time. For instance, I've already, since I've owned this, I've replaced this nut because on the big fat E string, it had worn down the bone groove so that it was right up against the fretboard, so you had a buzz all the way down the neck. So I've already replaced that, and we're going to show you how that works in a later chapter here. So that's done. So now the next thing, we talked about the pencil. You can spend, $15, $17, buy a little tube of nut, I think it's nut butter or nut juice or whatever they call it. It's for lubricating nuts, but basically it's graphite. So in a lead pencil, there's graphite. So you can save money next time you play a round of golf, just steal one off the golf cart. And what you want to do is you want to put it liberally in the grooves of the nut. You want to lubricate that nut with graphite, and also where the string crosses down the other end across the saddle, you want to put it there too. That allows the strings to move, so if you bend a string a little bit, then it can come back to where it was, and it helps you keep the guitar in tune, so it's not stuck where you bent it and now it's out of tune. Okay, it'll slide back and forth. So lead pencil, very important. Another little trick when you're putting strings on and off, after you take the strings off, you want to line all of the holes in the tuners the same way, like right across this way. So they're facing across this way. So when you put the strings back on, you can just put them in those holes without fiddling around. So that saves a lot of time, actually. Okay, so now strings are very important. If you have a more expensive guitar, you probably want to find out what the manufacturer recommends in string size for that particular guitar. Okay, I like a lighter string for a multitude of reasons. So I have to deal with things that happen. When you put a lighter string on it, there's a difference in the neck angle and stuff. So you have to deal with that. And you probably, if you have a lighter string than what the factory calls it, you might have some fret buzzing. But I have to deal with that because it's easier on my hand. I just like it better. For beginners, you might consider that too, a lighter grade of strings. But now's the time to pick out the type of strings that you're going to use. So these are 10s. I put a picture up there of what type of string I'm using on this guitar. Okay, another little trick that the Luthier showed us, and it's going to be hard for you to see this on camera, but at the end it has the little brass ring, if this is a steel guitar you're working on. You want to bend that over your finger like that with the string. The string goes around the little brass, so you want it to be in that direction. You want to bend that over your thumb so that it's got a little bit, can you see that, a little bit of angle on it? Because now, when you put it in the other end, where the string pin is going to be, and unfortunately you can't see that from this camera, it will go down underneath the string pin. So when you put the pin in, it won't pull straight up. It kind of locks right in there. So you can't see that. I'll try to get a picture of that happening in the rest of the video. So the next thing we're going to do is to try to figure out what length we want this string to be. Okay, the luthier that worked with us, he said like you go 1.5 tuning pegs is about the length that you want to go. Well, obviously when you get to the end, there are no 1.5 the highest one. So for me, the 1.5 is about the distance of my tip of my finger to my knuckle. It's going to be different on different people. So what I do is I can do the 1.5 on the lower ones, or I just measure it with my finger. And when you get that measurement, then you bend it. You bend the string. Now, you put the string through that hole that hopefully is facing in the correct direction for you, like that, till you get to that bend that you just made. Now, you want to bend the string up, straight up and down, so that it's not interfering with your winding. So I like to start winding them by hand, and I hold them down. When I'm first starting, I hold them down here, and I wind it by hand till I get maybe 1 or 2 turns on the tuner. And you want to keep that puppy up straight so it stays out of your way. Okay, now you can get your little tuner tool, and you can spin that up, and then I try to hold it down, because the object is, there's a lot of different schools to how the string should sit on the tuner, but everybody pretty much says is you want it to be pulling down on the string. Okay, so now we got it to where, and you make sure that your pin stays in the other end. Push your pin down. And now we're going to wind it up just to get just a little bit of sound on it. Now, when I first started doing these, I used to leave all the ends on because I was afraid I did something wrong and I'd have to take the string off. But you've got enough stuff left over the way we do it now with the one finger that you can cut the string off like immediately before you're done. And that way, it's not in your way and it's not banging all around and getting caught on the other strings. So, we got 6 more to do like that, okay? So we're going to take them, and we're going to not bore you with putting on 6 strings. It's like watching paint dry. But we want to remember that we're going to bend each one at the beginning, and then we're going to put it in the little hole where the pin goes, and then it's going to stay in that little hole where the pin goes. And then we're going to just briefly here, we're going to stick the pin in, and again, we're going to bring it up to this level now, to the next one here, and we're going to go out about the length of my finger to my big knuckle, and we're going to bend it, and then we're going to come through. We're going to come through here. Okay, and bend it up. Okay, so I'm gonna do that, 6 times, and I'll be right back. Okay, we got new strings on it. We stretched the heck out of the strings. We tuned it up. I tune it up laying down first, and I stretch them out, and I retune it a few times. And then when you're tuning it for the final time, you want it to be in a playing position when you tune your guitar. And go ahead and invest in a decent tuner. We've come a long way. We used to have tuning forks, or you could use the dial tone on your landline. That was an F. You could start with that. But we've come a long way from them. Now we've got digital tuners, pedal tuners, all kinds of tuners built in. So you want to tune it up, and most of you guys know you tune up. When you're tuning your guitar, you don't tune down. If you go past the E, if you're sharp, you don't tune down. You tune down past where you want to be and then tune back up again. Because if you tune down and stop, it's going to keep going down. And actually, a lot of times you'll find if you're just a little bit sharp, you don't even have to tune down. You can stretch the string just a little bit with your hand, and you'll see all of a sudden you come down. It's amazing. it'll come down like a couple of cents on a tuner. So we're done. So let's see what happens. Remember that? Remember that? Fret buzz? We don't have it anymore. So I'd say that's a success. Okay, so real quickly, I think we've covered everything on this. Obviously I changed 6 strings. You didn't watch me do all 6 of them, but it's the same concept. Make sure that the pins are in good. Push down on the pins, bend that string, like I said, so it fits around underneath, and then put your pin in and measure it out before you put the string through, and everything's going to be fine. If you do that a couple times, it'll be a breeze. So we're going to pick up another guitar for just a second and talk about a couple things. So as I mentioned, that Luthier guitar that we just had was having a birthday this month. It was going to be 23 years old. And coincidentally, this guitar, which is a Yamaha guitar, it was made in 1997. So somewhere along the line, it's having a birthday too, and it's going to be 23 years old. So it's not brand new. These were beginner type guitars when they were sold. This is a FG 401. They don't make this exact model anymore, but this was a really good model. Got a spruce top, and I don't know what kind of woods. It's supposed to be mahogany, probably like a mahogany plywood type thing back and front. So these are, less expensive guitars. But in order to make, this is a 1997, that was a 1997. In order to make this one more like that one, there's a couple of little minor things that you can do for like less than 10 bucks that will help a long way. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about changing the saddle from plastic to bone, and we're going to talk about changing the nut from plastic to bone. And the reason is plastic, guitars of this price range would probably come with a plastic nut and saddle. And so if you take the saddle out and you can bend the saddle, it's probably plastic. Or if you throw it on a concrete floor and it doesn't really make any noise, it's plastic. If you throw a bone one down there, you're going to hear a high-pitched noise, and that's what makes the difference. So what you're trying to do, you're trying to get the vibration from the springs through the bone and through the saddle into the guitar and get the top to vibrate and the sound to come out. So if you've got 2 dead pieces, one at either end, that's not allowing any sound to go through, it's not going to sound very good. So you want to make this guitar sound more like that guitar. So for $10, you can buy a bone nut and a bridge. Another way you can tell about the nut or the saddle to see if they're bone, if you lay them down on a piece of sandpaper and you sand them flat, it's going to turn to powder. And so you can tell right away that's bone. Okay? So we're not going to talk about, there's other things that you can do. Obviously, you can adjust the action of the guitar. There's a couple other things you can do. We're not going to talk about that today. Okay, but what you do need to know before you would bother to change those 2 little items, you want to make sure that the neck is in pretty good shape. Now, this is something you can do all by yourself without a lot of tools. You need 3 hands though, okay? Or you need a capo. So we chose to get a capo. So we put a capo on the 1st fret. Then we're gonna hold down the string where the neck meets the body. In this case, it's the 14th fret. It could be the 12th fret or whatever, but this is the 14th fret. So we're gonna hold that down. And on the 6th fret, we are going to see what kind of relief there is in this guitar. And actually, we shouldn't have it up like that because that doesn't help matters. It should be free. So, see, that made a difference, just not having it laying on something. Okay, so at the 6th fret, you need to have a little bit of relief. You need to have, let's say you had 2 sheets of paper. You should be able to slide 2 sheets of paper between the string and the fret. That'd be about perfect. If you can put a piece of cardboard through there, or you can't put anything through there, chances are this neck needs to be adjusted. The truss rod needs to be adjusted. And we're not going to get into that today. We're not going to do the other things. There's like things that could set the action would be the truss rod would be one thing. The height of the nut could be another thing. And then the height of the saddle. Those things control the action. Okay, but that's not what we're talking about today. We're just talking about quickly changing these 2 pieces from plastic to bone. So we're going to take a break while I get the strings off and just show you real quick about that. Hold on. Okay, we pull the strings back out of our way on this because it has brand new strings on it. So just to show you about checking for bone, this is a bone saddle that we're going to use today. And if you took, this is like wet and dry sandpaper, the black stuff, just so you can see it. And if you were to sand that, which is exactly what you would do if you're trying to reduce the size of your action, you would sand that. But I believe you can see that on screen. That's bone. Plastic won't do that. Okay? So that's a bone saddle. And we're going to get back to that because I may play around with the action, but that's not what we're doing today. And then the nut, okay? I bought this little bone nut. Now they come in different sizes. Okay, usually like 1 3/4 or 1 11/16, and then they have some other sizes. So you got to get the right size. This one happens to be 1 11/16. And you also, when you bring it down, before you take off the old one, you want to just set this beside it and make sure that this is a pre-cut nut. So we're not going to have to cut those little grooves for the string. So you just want to make sure that the grooves are in the same place as the one you're going to replace. So that's pretty simple. So we're doing that. And then you're going to take the other nut off, the old nut off, okay? You would just get a block of wood and you would tap on it. I already tapped that, okay? But you would just get a block of wood, put it up against the nut, and you would just tap it and it'll come right off. So now that's a plastic one. It just broke when I threw it on the floor. So it was really useless. Okay. So now we have a nice bone one that we're going to put on there. Okay, and it fits. And I'm going to go get some glue to show you the type of glue I use, but you're not going to have to watch the whole process. Hang on again for a second. Okay, so any type of basic wood glue, this happens to be a Gorilla brand, but just basic wood glue. And you don't need to put a ton of glue on. You're going to put some glue on the back of it. You're going to put a little bit of glue underneath it. And you might put a dab of glue on the actual guitar. But before you do any of that, have wet paper towels handy. And when you put it on and you push it on, you might get some glue that comes out. You know, you squished out. You don't need a ton of glue. You just want it to be almost like a Post-it note. It doesn't need to be on there so you can never take it off again. But glue it on there and then clean that up with a wet paper towel and that should come off perfectly. Let it sit, you know, for however long the glue says, but I always let it sit longer than that. And then you'd be able to restring it, and the strings are going to help hold that whole thing in place. I just want to give you one other quick tip before we go away. I'm just going to do this job and put it back together, and then probably just show you what it sounds like at the end. But another quick tip, a lot of times when you buy inexpensive guitars, be it electric or acoustic, you'll find that the frets are really sharp on the outside. They don't do a good job on it. This is actually really good. I don't know if I already fixed this or not, but these are not that sharp. But what I do, before I take the strings off, the old strings, let's say, I would put some tape on the body and maybe even underneath it, all the way down, some masking tape. But I run, this is a little sanding block. It's one of those foam little sanding blocks, and I get a long one so that it keeps a straight angle. And I run that up and down on an angle, and I use the string to help me find that angle. It makes a perfect angle, and you rub it up and down, and it just makes it so smooth, you wouldn't believe it. It takes all those burrs off. So that's a free tip. That wasn't even part of the deal, but you got that free tip. So I'm going to work on this, put it back together, and just show you the finished product. Okay, we're done with that job. This is nice and loud and rings clear now. Don't forget to lubricate with the pencil, the lead pencil, the spots where the strings go over the nut and the saddle. So this guitar sounds good. As you can see, I was busy while you guys were hanging around the pool having a margarita. That's bone from the saddle, but it's still not enough. So this, the action on this guitar is higher than my liking. This is a cool little, this is a tire depth gauge little thing here. It works perfectly for seeing what your action is. It's got a red line at the bottom of it, right about where I like to have my action. So, so this action is probably twice as high as I would like it. So that needs some work. So that's a good excuse to have another video. So we'll work on that. So I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll have a new one coming out soon. So remember to hit that subscribe button and like it if you like it. Thanks a lot. See you later.